Hello everyone, my name is Mark Beech, and this is my presentation on why nuclear power is not the solution quite yet, but it could be one in the future if some problems were addressed. First of all, this is why you should care about it. You should care because, well, we use power for everything to power our laptops, charge our computer, charge our laptops, and charge our phones, use the heater in our house, the air conditioning unit, the lights, everything you can think of pretty much requires power in some way, shape, or form. And nuclear power could be a solution to the problem of fossil fuels are starting to run out, and we need to find some alternatives for that because if we run out of fuel, then we won't have power, and that could be a big problem. And also, fossil fuels are pretty bad for the environment because of their gas emissions to the atmosphere. Also, if nuclear power ends up being cheaper, it would lower your electricity bills, which I'm sure all of us could be very happy about that. So basically, what is it? I'm going to go through a really quick rundown of it because it's pretty complicated and I don't want to bore you with all the details. And so first of all, you split a uranium atom. Uranium is the main fuel source that is used in most nuclear reactors. And you split that in half, basically, and that just creates a ton of energy. A lot of energy is produced from splitting one atom. And that energy can be used as heat to boil some water, which will turn into steam and which will push a turbine and make that spin and eventually create electricity that could go to your homes. So that is the basics of what it is. I could explain very quickly. So now what are the pros of this? One pro is that it has low greenhouse gas emissions. In 2019, the US avoided over 470 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions because of these nuclear power plants, which is a very good number. Also, they have a very high power output compared to coal, which has, for 1 kilogram of coal, you have 8 kilowatt hours of power. Whereas with 1 kilogram of uranium, you can get up to 24 million kilowatt hours of power, which is a very, very large number compared to 8. So that's very good. Also, it's relatively inexpensive. The fuel sources, uranium only costs 1,300 for 1 kilogram to be refined and be ready to be used as fuel. But it also has very high upfront cost. It costs billions to build the power plant, but they only take a few years, like 5 years, to build, and then they run for up to 60 or so years, which is a very good life expectancy. And they run 90% of the time, over 90% of the time of the year, which is different when compared to the others, which don't run nearly as long. Coal, I think, runs about 60% of the time or less. I'm not completely sure on that number, but it is fairly low. Um, some of the cons are very big and hard to ignore, like nuclear waste is a problem. It creates tons of the stuff. In the US, I have a slide next that will show you a map of how much is actually created in the US. And for each power plant, there is about 20 metric tons that are created a year, which is not good. This waste is radioactive. It can be bad for the environment and bad for your health. It could cause cancer and stuff like that if you're exposed to the radiation. And uranium is also non-renewable, which isn't great. It can be recycled, which I'll talk about later, but it's still like non-renewable and will run out eventually, so it's not a permanent solution by any means. Also, meltdowns are quite the big problem. Like the image on the top right, that's right there, right below my face, is a reactor in Japan that had a meltdown, a big explosion, exposed many people to radiation. And the big famous one that we can all think of is Chernobyl, which affected 600,000 people, causing thousands to get cancer and about 50 or so people to die from that disaster alone, which is not very good. This is that map I was talking about. As you can see, there is tons and tons of nuclear waste everywhere. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of this map shows how much is per state, that's quite big numbers. That's thousands of the stuff everywhere, thousands of tons, which is not very good. So what are some possible solutions? And what can you do about it? Personally, I recommend doing research about this and putting more money into researching nuclear power because it seems like a very viable solution if all these issues were dealt with, the cons were dealt with, which recycling is something that is happening. Up to 90% of, and even more, of nuclear fuel is being recycled, which is great and can be used again. That way there's no waste, which is very nice. Also, we would need better containment of said waste because right now they're stored underground in these vaults, but vaults are finite and will run out, so that's not the greatest solution. And also, we need better safety measures because I know we all don't want explosions or anything like that, and we just need to find a better way to contain the radiation and stop that from being an issue. Also, another solution could be alternatives like wind, solar, and hydroelectric power. They're clean energy with low emissions and are infinite pretty much because wind, solar, and all that will not run out ever. So those are very good solutions. I don't have time to really dive into those, but they could also pose an alternative for the time being as we work on nuclear. All right, thank you so much for listening and have a good day.